If you've spent any time looking at the UK housing market lately, you'll know the feeling. Every price tag reads like a punchline. Studio flats for £300,000 in London. Terraced houses in Manchester costing more than entire Scottish Islands. Even in places you'd never think of as prime, you'll see asking prices that feel like they belong on monopoly boards, not in estate agent windows. The common narrative is bleak. Unless you've got a six-figure salary, a hefty inheritance, or the willingness to take on decades of mortgage payments, the dream of home ownership is slipping out of reach. First-time buyers are told to adjust their expectations, renters are told to be grateful for what they've got, and downsizers are told they'll never find something affordable without moving halfway across the world. But behind the headlines, hidden away in postcodes you've probably never typed into Rightmove, lies a completely different story. There are towns where the market seems to have fallen asleep sometime around 1997. Places where property values have stayed grounded, not because they're undesirable, but because they've been overlooked. They're not on the lips of property investors. They're not hyped in lifestyle magazines, and they're not yet subject to the bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere. The difference? They sit outside the mainstream property conversation. No one's fighting over them. No one's rushing in with cash offers well above asking price, which means the competition is minimal and the prices are, frankly, absurd. You could pay off an entire mortgage in the time it takes your London friends to save for a deposit. In some cases, you could own a home outright for the cost of a second-hand car. It's the kind of market that feels like a glitch in the system. You almost expect an estate agent to call you back and say there's been a mistake, but there's no mistake. These are real towns, real homes, and real opportunities. And if you're willing to look beyond the usual hotspots, you might just find yourself living somewhere so affordable, it feels like you've beaten the game entirely. Shildon, County Durham. Shildon is one of those rare places that makes seasoned property watchers blink twice, rub their eyes, and check the date on the listing. How could a home cost that little in 2025? Sitting quietly in County Durham, Shildon has a proud history woven into the very layout of its streets. This is the birthplace of the world's first passenger railway line. A fact that isn't just trivia here, but a living part of the town's identity. The National Railway Museum's locomotion site is a constant reminder of that industrial legacy, with gleaming locomotives standing as proud as the day they rolled onto the tracks. What's even more impressive is that while Shildon's heritage remains on full display, its housing market appears to be frozen in a gentler time. Two-bedroom terraces routinely list for £30,000 or less, numbers that seem plucked from a newspaper property page in the mid-1990s. Some of these homes need a touch of modernising. Sure, a fresh kitchen here, a bathroom upgrade there, but many are move-in ready, requiring no more than a few tins of paint and a weekend of DIY. Occasionally, you'll even see a three-bedroom house slip into the £35,000 to £40,000 bracket. That's still less than what many city renters are paying for 12 months of a cramped flat with no garden. The reason for these rock-bottom prices isn't a hidden flaw in the town, it's the market's own inertia. Shildon doesn't sit in the path of a surging commuter corridor. It's not riding the wave of population booms like Durham City or Newcastle. Its economy is steady rather than booming, which means property values don't get pulled upward by investor demand. For locals, that means stability. For buyers from outside the area, it means opportunity. Day-to-day life here is surprisingly convenient for a place that feels so far removed from urban chaos. Train services link directly to Darlington, opening up the rest of the rail network. Local buses cover surrounding villages and towns. There are schools, shops, and a scattering of cafes and pubs that keep the town's social life ticking over. And for anyone who craves greenery, the countryside is literally minutes away. Rolling hills, quiet footpaths, and cycling routes that stretch on for miles. Then there's the cost of living, which makes Shildon even more appealing. Council tax bands sit comfortably at the lower end, utilities are below the national average, and your weekly grocery bill is a fraction of what it might be in the southeast. For remote workers, the financial math is almost too good to be true. Live mortgage-free here, and your monthly outgoings could be less than what someone in London spends on gas and electricity alone. Shildon isn't pretending to be a glossy commuter haven or a gentrified hidden gem. It's a real working town, affordable to its core, where the numbers still make sense in a housing market that's lost all sense of proportion. Port Glasgow, Inverclyde set on the banks of the River Clyde, just a short hop west of Glasgow. Port Glasgow is the kind of place that makes you question everything you think you know about property prices. It's a town with a proud shipbuilding history, once a key cog in Scotland's industrial machine, where the water was both workplace and lifeline. That heritage still lingers in the skyline, in the quiet dignity of old warehouses and cranes, and in the stories locals can tell about the days when the yards were roaring with activity. Today, the shipbuilding heyday is long gone, but the views remain, sweeping river vistas framed by the rolling hills of Argyll, skies that seem to shift by the minute, and sunsets that turn the Clyde gold. In almost any other market, that kind of scenery would have developers circling like hawks. Yet here, the homes remain astonishingly affordable. One-bedroom flats start at around £25,000. That's not a typo, that's the cost of a mid-range used car. Two-bedroom flats often come in at £35,000 to £40,000, and larger three-bedroom terraces, or semi-detached houses, can frequently be found under £60,000. These aren't tumble-down shells in need of complete rebuilds. Many are move-in ready, some with fresh paint and modern kitchens, and most sit within easy reach of the things that make daily life work: supermarkets, schools, pubs, and takeaways. Port Glasgow also benefits from solid transport links. The local train station offers regular services into central Glasgow in under half an hour and Java, when there's easy road access via the A8, connecting quickly to the M8 motorway. That means you can enjoy the slower pace of riverside living without giving up urban convenience. So why are prices still so low? The answer lies in the slow echo of industrial decline. Like much of Inverclyde, Port Glasgow was hit hard when the shipyards closed. Jobs disappeared, young people left in search of opportunities elsewhere, and the town's economic heartbeat slowed. Regeneration efforts have been steady but gradual. New housing developments, improved public spaces, and a spruced-up Clydeside promenade. But they haven't yet triggered the kind of speculative buying that pushes prices sky high. For buyers, that means a window of opportunity. The housing stock is solid, often built to last in an era when materials and craftsmanship were of a higher standard than many modern builds. The sandstone tenements exude character, the post-war semis offer space and gardens, and the newer builds add a touch of modernity without losing the sense of community that defines the town. The lifestyle here is one of balance. You can walk along the waterfront on a Tuesday evening and have the promenade almost to yourself. You can nip into Glasgow for work, shopping, or nightlife, then retreat home to a quieter, more spacious environment. And you can do all of it while paying a fraction of what you'd spend in even the outer suburbs of the city. Port Glasgow isn't just affordable, it's absurdly affordable for what it offers. And for anyone willing to live just beyond the city bubble, it delivers that rare mix: urban convenience, scenic surroundings, and a housing market that still makes you feel like you've discovered a secret. Nelson, Lancashire has more than its fair share of budget-friendly towns, but Nelson stands out for how much house you can get for so little. This old mill town sits between Burnley and Colne, with rows of sturdy stone terraces that were built to last. And they've done exactly that. It's not uncommon to see two-bedroom houses listed for £35,000. In fact, Even the top end of the local market often caps at £80,000 for a fully renovated 3-bedroom. Nelson's property prices reflect the town's economic reality. Manufacturing jobs have dwindled, and while there are retail parks and small businesses, it's not an employment hotspot. That keeps demand low. But for buyers, that's precisely the appeal. The town is well connected by road and rail, with Manchester reachable in just over an hour. And the surrounding countryside, the Pennines, the Forest of Bowland, is stunning. For anyone willing to put in a bit of work on a fixer-upper, the value here is off the charts. You could buy a house outright and still have enough left over from a modest savings pot to renovate it. Council tax is low, groceries are affordable, and the pace of life is slower than most urban centres. Nelson isn't trying to be trendy, it's just offering honest housing at prices the rest of the country forgot were possible. Blaenau Ffestiniog, Gwynedd deep in the heart of Snowdonia, Blaenau Ffestiniog feels like a place carved from the mountains themselves. Once the slate capital of the world, this North Wales town still carries the remnants of its industrial heyday. Rows of slate-roofed terraces stacked along steep hillsides, looming quarries, and the unmistakable scent of rain on stone. What's changed is the market value. Today, you can buy a habitable 2-bedroom home here for £45,000. Smaller 1-bedroom cottages often dip into the £35,000 range, and while those needing work can list for £25,000, they're often structurally sound. What makes Blaenau so unique is that it offers the kind of scenery people usually pay a premium for. The town is surrounded by mountains, hiking trails, and some of the UK's most dramatic landscapes. Tourists flock here for Zip World, the mountain bike trails, and the narrow-gauge Ffestiniog Railway. Yet, despite the inflow of visitors, the housing market hasn't exploded. That's partly because the local job market is small and salaries are modest, which keeps demand low among locals and discourages speculative investment. For a buyer willing to live here year-round, or even split time between here and another base, the cost of living is modest. Council tax is reasonable, utilities aren't inflated, and access to the coast is within a 40-minute drive. This is the kind of town where you could live debt-free and wake up to a mountain view every single day. Peterlee, County Durham. Peterlee is one of those towns that doesn't make property headlines, and that's exactly why it's such a bargain. Built in the post-war years as a new town to house mining families, Peterlee has wide streets, plenty of green space, and a housing stock that's almost entirely brick-built. Its property market is quietly among the cheapest in England. 2-bedroom terraces here regularly list for £35,000 to £45,000. Larger 3-bed homes can be found for under £60,000. Even houses that have been refurbished to a high standard rarely exceed £80,000. The value here is driven by modest local wages and the lack of a commuter rush. Peterlee isn't directly on a rail line, though it's well connected by road to Sunderland, Durham City and Hartlepool. The town centre has supermarkets, schools, healthcare facilities, and a bus station linking to the wider region. Beaches are just a short drive away, with Seaham and its glass-strewn sands offering a surprisingly scenic escape. And because Peterlee was designed as a planned town, it has a better layout and infrastructure than many places in its price bracket. Living here feels like stepping into an overlooked gap in the housing market. The prices are so low compared to the quality of the homes that it almost feels wrong, like someone misplaced a decimal point. Fraserburgh, Aberdeenshire. Up on the northeast tip of Scotland, where the North Sea pounds the coast and the wind carries the smell of salt and diesel, you'll find Fraserburgh, a fishing port, with some of the most affordable seaside property in the UK. It's remote, yes, but it offers a type of coastal living that would be unaffordable almost anywhere else. Here, you can buy a 2-bedroom flat for £35,000 or less. Larger homes often sit in the £50,000 to £70,000 range. Even semi-detached houses with gardens and sea views can occasionally be found for under £80,000. And unlike many coastal towns in England, where prices have been driven sky high by holiday home buyers, Fraserburgh remains a working town first. The harbour is still active, with fishing at the heart of its economy. There are supermarkets, schools and medical centres, plus direct road links to Aberdeen. The climate is bracing, the winter's long, but for those who want clean air, dramatic coastlines and space to breathe, it's a compelling trade-off. The cost of living here is lower than most of the UK's coastal communities. Local produce and seafood are inexpensive. Rent, if you need it, is minimal. And energy bills, while influenced by the climate, are offset by low mortgage costs. Fraserburgh isn't trying to reinvent itself as a trendy weekend escape. It's just a place where you can own a home by the sea for a price that seems impossible in 2025. Blaenau Ffestiniog, Gwynedd tucked, deep within the rugged embrace of Snowdonia, Blaenau Ffestiniog is a town that seems hewn directly from the rock. Once the beating heart of the world's slate industry, it sent its grey-blue slabs across the globe, roofing cities far from these Welsh hills. Its history is carved into every terrace, every weathered wall, and every jagged quarry, face still looming on the skyline. Today, Blaenau's slate heritage is a point of pride, but its housing prices are an entirely different conversation. In a property market that feels inflated almost everywhere else, this is one of the last bastions of true affordability. Two-bedroom terraces here often sell for as little as £45,000, sometimes even less if you're willing to roll up your sleeves for minor repairs. One-bedroom cottages, often with thick stone walls and quaint fireplaces, can list in the £35,000 range. Occasionally, a property needing light refurbishment will drop to £25,000, and in many cases, the homes are structurally sound and simply need cosmetic updates. What's most striking is how much value you get beyond the four walls. Blaenau is surrounded by some of the most breathtaking landscapes in the UK. The mountains, the valleys, the winding lanes, they're not just scenery, they're a lifestyle. Hiking, cycling, rock climbing, and exploring the local slate caverns are part of daily life here. And while tourists visit in droves for attractions like Zip World or the Ffestiniog and Welsh Highland Railways, the local housing market hasn't caught the holiday home fever that sent prices soaring in nearby coastal areas. The cost of living in Blaenau is refreshingly modest. Council tax bands are on the lower end. Groceries from the local co-op or market stalls are priced well below city averages. Utilities, thanks to the small property sizes and decent insulation of stone-built homes, are manageable. And with a train station connecting you to Llandudno and beyond, you're not cut off from the outside world. For someone working remotely or seeking a base in the heart of nature, this is as close to a legal housing hack as you'll find. Stanley, County Durham. Stanley sits on the northern edge of County Durham, a stone's throw from Newcastle, yet stubbornly immune to the runaway prices of Tyneside. It's a town with coal in its veins, literally and figuratively, shaped by the mining boom and left to quietly reinvent itself after the pits closed. What's remarkable is how complete its amenities are for a place where homes routinely list for less than a family hatchback. Two-bedroom terraces here can still be found for £35,000. Three-bedroom homes, many with small gardens and off-street parking, hover in the £50,000 to £65,000 range. Even larger semis rarely cross the £80,000 threshold. That makes Stanley an outlier in a region where commuter towns have been climbing steadily in value. Stanley's appeal isn't just in the housing. It has a full suite of amenities: supermarkets, schools, sports centres, GP surgeries. And it's within 20 minutes of Newcastle by car. Public transport is frequent, and the surrounding countryside opens up opportunities for hiking, cycling, and weekend escapes. Cost of living is low across the board, from groceries to council tax. The low pricing here comes from a perception problem. Stanley is seen as post-industrial and not yet part of the Newcastle property rush. But that's exactly why it's a sleeper choice. Close enough to the city for convenience, far enough to avoid inflated prices. Irvine, North Ayrshire. On Scotland's west coast, Irvine combines maritime history with surprisingly low property prices for a town within commuting distance of Glasgow. Once a royal burgh and a bustling port, it still has a working harbour and long stretches of sandy beach. The housing, however, is almost shockingly affordable. One-bedroom flats can be had for under £30,000. Two-bedroom homes often sit between £40,000 and £55,000, with three-bedroom semis rarely exceeding £75,000. Many properties are within walking distance of the coast, the train station and shopping centres. Irvine benefits from solid infrastructure, direct rail to Glasgow in under 45 minutes, bus routes across Ayrshire, and good road links via the A78 and A71. Its town centre includes modern retail parks alongside historic buildings, and the harbourside area has been partially regenerated. Why the low prices? Like many coastal towns that relied on heavy industry, Irvine saw economic decline in the late 20th century. But with ongoing redevelopment, it has the bones of a much pricier location. Those who buy now are stepping in before the next wave of regeneration fully takes hold. Wishaw, North Lanarkshire. Wishaw is one of those central belt towns that outsiders often overlook, but anyone scanning the Scottish property market for value knows its name well. Located just 15 miles from Glasgow and 30 from Edinburgh, it's incredibly well connected, yet retains prices that feel decades out of date. Two-bedroom flats regularly sell for £35,000 to £45,000. Three-bedroom houses often fall between £55,000 and £75,000. Even larger detached homes can sometimes be found under £100,000, depending on condition. The town's rail station links directly to Glasgow in around 25 minutes, making it an easy commuter base. Local amenities are plentiful: hospitals, supermarkets, schools, sports facilities. And nearby countryside offers a break from the urban sprawl. Wishaw's affordability comes from its working-class roots and the absence of major gentrification pressure. It's practical, functional, and grounded. Qualities that, paradoxically, keep speculative buyers at bay. For someone who wants city access without city pricing, it's hard to beat. Kirkby, Merseyside. Just 6 miles from Liverpool's city centre, Kirkby is a commuter town that hasn't yet absorbed the full force of Merseyside's property inflation. Known for its 1950s and 60s housing estates, it offers some of the best value within striking distance of a major UK city. Two-bedroom terraces here can be found from £45,000 upwards. Three-bedroom houses often range from £60,000 to £80,000, with larger properties occasionally dipping under £100,000. That's a fraction of what you pay in Liverpool for the same square footage. Kirkby's strengths are its transport links and amenities. Multiple train stations, bus routes, and quick motorway access make commuting into Liverpool or further afield straightforward. The town centre has been undergoing redevelopment with new shops, public spaces, and improved services. Its prices remain low, partly due to outdated perceptions and the large stock of ex-council housing, which keeps supply high. But as Liverpool continues to grow, towns like Kirkby are positioned to rise in value, making its current affordability a rare window. Across the UK, the housing narrative is one of scarcity, competition, and financial strain. The message is clear. Unless you have a six-figure salary, a wealthy relative, or the luck of timing, home ownership is slipping out of reach. Yet these 10 towns stand as living contradictions to that narrative. From Blaenau Ffestiniog's mountain views to Fraserburgh's salt streaked coast, from Peterlee's post-war orderliness to Irvine's sandy shoreline, each location offers the kind of entry point that almost doesn't exist elsewhere. They're not speculative fantasies. They're functioning communities where the numbers still add up in the buyer's favour. The reasons for their affordability vary. Some, like Stanley and Wishaw, are victims of perception, seen as unglamorous or too ordinary to attract outside investment. Others, like Kirkby and Port Glasgow, carry the weight of industrial decline, with reputations that haven't caught up to present reality. And a few, like Fraserburgh, are simply remote enough to avoid the frenzy of commuter belt bidding wars. But all share a common truth. The gap between what they offer and what they cost is vast. In an era where a one-bedroom flat in London can cost £500,000, the idea of buying a full house for under £50,000 feels almost illicit, as if you found a glitch in the system. Of course, these towns aren't for everyone. They may lack certain conveniences, have limited job markets, or demand a car for mobility. Regeneration may be slow, and amenities more basic than in a major city. But for those willing to adapt, the reward is freedom. Financial, personal, and geographic. In 5 or 10 years, many of these places will look different. Investment will come. Prices will rise. The same listings you scroll past today could be double or triple their current value. The question is whether you see them for what they are now, the UK's last affordable frontiers. Because the truth is, in a market this skewed, finding a place where you can live without debt, own your home outright, and keep your monthly costs low isn't just luck, it's strategy. And in these 10 towns, that strategy is still possible.